that are not faintable. So we put the changes on these heroes. This does not mean that the list is complete. This does not mean that we would not apply it to other heroes when our tests or when we end up with the results from this testing grounds. It just means we've applied to these heroes for now. So in this case, we took, for example, here Griffon and Shigoki. Their front dodge bash is now 466 instead of 500. Right. So what we're doing also is that we're trying to go from 466 to 400 to figure out what timing is okay. I've had people tell me, like I have some discussions with pro players at some point. I go, 466 is probably okay for everything. Some of them say 433 is probably better. Some others say no, they need to be 400. So with this, we can actually fully test it out.
We answer all the we cover all the variables.
We cover all the variables, right? So nice. Griffon and Shigoki are going to be 466. Sent and Kyoshin are going to be 433, and JJ and Glad are going to be 400. Nice. So with these, like we're really able to tell. We'll be able to look at the results, look at what we have as feedback from players, from all sorts of different sources to go, what speed do these need to be actually viable, right? And at all levels. Typically, for these, when you're viable at super top level, is viable for everybody.
Right.
So that's great. And then we also have to make sure that it doesn't really cause problems, because at the 400 range, what we're a little bit more worried about is that it kind of creates frame advantage off of heavy finishers that push heavy reactions that might make it a little bit harder to get into. It might be great. It might not. We want to make sure that our players try it out and really see, right? So this is more of an experimental TG than just having, hey, we're testing out changes to this hero and, go ahead and have fun. This is more like we really need the community's help to help us test these, because this is super useful, and there's way more players that are playing this game than we are on the team. So, and then at this point, I can't react at a 500 anyway. Yeah. Not a lot of people on our team. I think maybe one is able to. So it's super tricky. So we really want everybody's help with this. So we're really hoping. So this is it for that with bashes that I have non-faintable attacks attached to them. So for bashes with a faintable attack, we took Zanhu, Shinobi, and Yorm. So Zanhu is at 466, Shinobi is at 433, and Yorm is at 400. Again, 3 different numbers. So we're going for this. Finally, bashes without any attacks. So Conk is a little bit different here, because Conk had a branching from 1 to 500. So we're testing out 466 for the speed of the bash itself, but having that bash at 300 in the front dodge instead of 100, to kind of like standardize that part a little bit so that it's easier for everybody. That's kind of like good standardization in this case. I know people don't really like when we talk about this, but at the end of the day, this is a good way to standardize it, because if the bash itself is not reactable, but you can react to the dodge, it creates a viable mix-up every time you front dodge. Because your opponent goes, I don't know if they're going to bash. Because they don't know if you're going to bash. They don't know when you're going to bash. They don't know what's going to be happening. Side dodging with attacks is risky. Some characters are able to like front dodge, feint into parries. They're always like parries now. So it makes like it makes a big difference, right? So we want to make this type of offense better. A little bit riskier on the defender side. You have to take more reads when you're defending against these.
Right.
And it also helps these heroes to really, really get into their offense. Yeah. But for that to work properly, it needs to be at 300, right? Because at 300, that's the threshold where pretty much everyone is able to go, oh, my opponent dodged.
Yeah.
And then you can, okay, they dodge. I can pre-dodge the bash before it starts, and you're able to fully dodge the bash, and you're okay. But the thing is, for these two heroes, right, we have 466 on Conk and 433 on Lawbringer. Lawbringer's in the testing grounds further, so that's also
it's going to be a big testing ground.
But we didn't have one at 400 because we know that at 400, this guaranteed is going to work.
Yeah.
But we want to see what the threshold is, right? So again, we're going to count on our players to really, really go through this and help us determine what the exact threshold is. And again, it's the 466, it's the 433. It can be different per hero as well, right? So if you feel that Conk is okay at 466, but maybe Lawbringer needs to be at 4, don't hesitate to give that feedback. It is not an issue whatsoever. If you feel that, like, maybe at 4 it's okay, at 433 probably would be okay, give that feedback as well. We're super psyched to hear everything we can hear from this.
Yeah.
But it's very, very crucial that we get a lot of people's eyes on this and playing it and trying it out and seeing how it feels.
Sure.
So that's great there.
So there you go. That's